recently saw Deadpool and Wolverine, and when I walked out of that movie, I had some great ideas for upcoming spec books, and there's a whole theme to it. So in this video, we're going to talk about 7 characters that I think are a shoe-in for the MCU that aren't on the radar for the most part at this time. And with the state of the current comic book market, it might be a good time to go and pick these up. And we have a bunch of other stuff to talk about spec in general, so stick with me. It's going to be interesting. But before we do, make sure you get entered to win this month's giveaway here on the YouTube channel. All you have to do is subscribe, comment, and like this video, and you're entered to win 2 free slabs. And also, if you head over to brycecomics.com and sign up for the newsletter over there, you get entered to win 2 free slabs, a vintage and a modern Spidey. And it's where we always have new inventory coming in. I just listed a whole bunch of new books, and if you check out brycecomics.com, you can sort over here by date new to old or price low to high. Let's try low to high and see what we got. We got some raw books for under $20. We've got some awesome 9/8 Spideys for under $40. Bunch of affordable stuff and a bunch of pricey stuff too. Always a good selection at brycecomics.com. Use code COLLECT10 for 10% off all in-stock items. That code is always active, but I also send out, bigger discounts when I'm trying to make room for new stuff. So make sure you sign up to that newsletter over there and follow us over on Whatnot. Link down below for $15 towards your first purchase on Whatnot. In a recent show, somebody won 2 giveaways and $1,000 store credit, and that was I think at least the 4th time that that's happened. So we're having tons of fun. We're giving away some excellent value over there. Let's hop into the first book here on this list. I think sets up a really interesting point. And so what I want to talk about here is the Sentry. I think the Sentry, it's only a matter of time before they come to the MCU. And in fact, there was a recent announcement at San Diego Comic-Con where Louis Pullman stated his character's name is Bob in the Thunderbolts, which is likely the alter ego of the Sentry, Bob Reynolds. So I want to use this to illustrate a point that we can be way wrong with our speculation. So if you haven't seen Deadpool and Wolverine yet, and it's not really a spoiler what I'm about to say, but if you just want to go into it blind, you might want to skip the next couple minutes. And I'll give you 3 seconds here to click away or whatever. 1, 2, 3. Now, what I'm talking about is Taylor Swift did not appear in that movie. And because of speculation that she was going to show up as the Dazzler or as Lady Deadpool and all of the reasons why, right? I mean, I don't go too far down the rabbit hole with the celebrity stuff. I mean, I can't really, it doesn't resonate with me in my personal life. But, the top of the Hot 10 list, week after week after week, the first appearance of Dazzler because of speculation that Taylor Swift was going to play the role of Dazzler because I think it was because she was seen with Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman, and there could have been any reason for that, and people just went way down the rabbit hole. But this is a funny article here by Deadline where it says, although Deadpool and Wolverine is stacked with star-studded cameos, one piece of fan casting that never quite made it to the big screen was Taylor Swift. And remember, this was fan casting. This was not, anything official. And the director himself, Sean Levy, finally addressed it where he talks about the fact that it was so very loud that he definitely had moments where he was worried that I would disappoint people when they realized Taylor as Dazzler was not in the movie, but there's no controlling the internet and rumors spread like wildfire. So the director was sitting there watching this take off and people were so excited about it. He's going, oh no, she's not in the movie. She's not, she never was. She never was going to be. She isn't, and she won't. So it's just a perfect example of rumors on the internet, how they spread like wildfire, and especially for comic book speculation. So take all of it with a grain of salt. So one of the things that I walked away from that movie and that this Deadline article alludes to is that it was stacked with star-studded cameos and all of these characters, right, that I thought, man, it's only a matter of time. The MCU will go on long enough to where every major character is going to be in the MCU at some point. So why not focus on the major characters that there's really not a ton of buzz about? And that's where the picks on this list come from, is these are characters that I think for sure at some point we'll hit the MCU. It might not be for another decade, and that's perfect because that's a great time to buy it, is when it's not on anyone's radar. Like this next book on the list, Nova #1. I think it is just a matter of time. Like it's definitely going to happen, but there is no rumblings about Nova right now. I mean, there was stuff back in 2021 and 2022, but it's not on the hot 10 list. Nobody's looking at Nova, and the market is way down on Nova #1, which would be the book to get for Nova, in my opinion. All right, so next on the list, we have Captain Britain. I think Captain Britain has a high likelihood of coming to the MCU. He first appears in these magazines that are technically foreign magazines, which I think are really cool. Like this Captain Britain #1. I love the art on this. It's got a 10 pence cover price. It's a great book. I think it's relatively affordable for what it is. I mean, and you can find it. And I've always just loved the art on that one. And then also the first comic book appearance in the US is Marvel Team Up #65, which also I absolutely love this art. I just love what's going on here with the battle between them and these little bubbles and stuff. I just really like that art, and this is a super affordable book. We just sold one for, very, very reasonable amount. All right, so next on the list, we have Power Pack #1. This is a book that is very affordable, even in a 9.8, so that's a nice cheap spec. It's not on anybody's radar whatsoever at this point. Another team that I think is absolutely destined for the MCU, maybe sooner rather than later, is Alpha Flight. And so that is X-Men 120 and X-Men 121 are the major keys. And those books have always been major keys. So that's a really safe spec, is that, these are just super desirable just for X-Men collectors in general. And then, of course, Alpha Flight #1 is the, budget spec for Alpha Flight. Very affordable, even in a 9.8 in that book, especially it's so common. I mean, there's so many copies of this and they're always coming up to sell. If you set a search on eBay for Alpha Flight #1, CGC 9.8, I guarantee you, if you're patient, you can snipe one for, 20-30% less than what like the 90-day average is. So Alpha Flight #1 in a 9.8 is a good one to do an eBay search for. So what about some big bads? What about, obviously Doctor Doom is at the top of the radar right now. Everybody's talking about Doctor Doom, but what are some other big bads for the MCU? Because there's always going to need to be a big bad. And I think a good one for the X-Men is going to be Mr. Sinister. And so that's X-Men 221 and 239. Prices have really come down for that. If we look at GP analysis, 221, the last sale was 205, with everything on the downtrend for the first full appearance of Mr. Sinister. But what about his first cover and second appearance in X-Men #239? This is a fantastic first cover appearance and is even more affordable in the 9.8. And the last two sales actually illustrate a really interesting point about this book. Is it's volatile because it's not on people's radar as much as 221, the first full appearance. So, the last sale was 255, but the sale before that was $90. So this is another one that, if you set a search for, you can probably snag a really good deal for the first cover appearance of Mr. Sinister. To round out the list, we have one of the biggest, in my opinion, to not make it into like the mainstream MCU, which is Luke Cage. I think that, first of all, I'm just a big fan of Luke Cage. I love the cover art for lots of his keys. I love the character in general. The first appearance in Luke Cage Hero for Hire #1 is a pricey book, especially in high grade. It's super, super rare in ultra high grade because of the black cover and I guess people just weren't keeping as good of care of these books. But here is, if you're looking for just a cool, off the radar book, it's probably a little bit more on the radar with the recent Doom stuff. But here's a Doom cover for Luke Cage Hero for Hire in issue #9. Awesome Doom cover, awesome Luke Cage cover, and an awesome story. This is a classic story where Luke Cage storms Dr. Doom's castle to collect $200 that he is owed for tracking down some missing robots. So once again, there's tons of opportunity and upcoming heroes and villains that are going to have FOMO reactions when they're announced. And that's how you have to be thinking about spec is like, you know, at this point for certain specs like Silver Surfer and Doctor Doom, I mean, we all know it's imminent and right around the corner. And so like at this point, I think all of the FOMO buys are pretty much out of that. But so what's the next one going to be? What's the next exciting thing going to be? What character is far enough off people's radar that if it's announced that Nova is definitely in this next upcoming project, then yes, I think that book has room to go up like 30 or 40%, at least for the short term. Because as speculation goes, all of these things eventually come back down to earth and back in line. But that's one of the fun things about speculation and this hobby is you can ride that wave, and if you time it correctly, and buy yourself some more comic books, have it fun the hobby. It's just, for me, it's a lot of fun. The Deadpool movie, man, I gotta say, with that, when Lady Deadpool showed up on screen, I was just waiting for her to take off her mask. And when she didn't, and she was just another one of the many, many, many Deadpool variants, it was just like so embarrassing for me. Like I was just like, oh my God, how could we have got it so wrong? You know, how could we have got it so wrong? And it's because we get a little carried away, folks. But it's all in good fun. At least it should be. I hope you're having fun with it. Thank you for sticking with me to the end of the video. Don't forget to check us out over on Whatnot, link down below for $15 towards your first purchase. Come pick yourself up something for 15 bucks or less in the buy it now. Win 2 giveaways possibly, like the last guy, and $1,000 store credit, and have a ton of fun hanging out with a bunch of other nerds that like to look at graded comic books on a Friday night. It's fun for me. I hope it's fun for you. And thanks for sticking with us to the end. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye. So one of the things in that movie that the director talked about is how, let me do my transition here. So one of the things in that movie that the director talked about, well, what if it doesn't work? What if I switch and it doesn't fucking work? And I have to redo the whole video. I think it'll work. So